Hey everyone, Chang here and welcome to my channel. This is the bare minimum algebra series. Now, previously I made a video where basically we were trying to translate specific English words into operations, helping us hopefully with word problems. Now here's an addendum or an addition to that. So as we cover more grounds, there are definitely more words to represent different things. Today we're going to focus on inequality and how to translate inequality in a word problem. Now, this is not comprehensive in any way. Of course, there are many possible variations, but these are the common ones that I can think of at the top of my head at the moment. All right, so let's just go about this. And one more thing, definitely feel free to share any other ones that are out in the wild that you've noticed, just so everyone can have as a reference this video, and in the comment section, all the possibilities of different ways of stating greater than, less than, greater than or equal, or less than or equal. All right, so let's just talk about these really quickly. Now, the first one is greater than, right? This symbol right here. The most common ones that you'll probably hear of is more than, bigger than, greater than, larger than, or any variations of these kinds where basically it's something than, right? Increase, whatever, right? There's all these different ones. Interestingly enough, for less than, I can only really think of two that is the most common, which is smaller than, less than. There's not as much variation as greater than, but here you go, right? Now, for greater than or equal, right? Of course, if they just write out greater than or equal, fairly obvious. The one that's not as obvious is the at least. Right? When you hear at least, right, it actually does represent greater than or equal, because the minimum is the least part, right? And at least means that hopefully, if not the smallest possible, anything bigger, right? So this is one, and of course, this is only one variation. Of course, you can have more than or equal, bigger than or equal, larger than or equal, so on and so forth, right? Same thing with this one right here, which is less than or equal. If, of course, they say less than or equal, we would love that. Easy translation right there. The other one that's a little confusing, very similar to at least, is the at most. At most represents less than or equal to, right? So there is this limit, this large quantity that you cannot surpass. That's why at most is that largest thing, and anything less than that is perfectly fine. So these are the four common, well, not four common, four symbols with their common translation. So let's look at least one or two problems where you can see how they are applicable in the wild. All right, so here's the first one, fairly easy one, usually the common ones that you would encounter where they're fairly nice. You're not trying to read and comprehend some thick English paper, right? You're actually just trying to understand the problem. In this one, they use all the possible math vocabulary that you can translate fairly easily. Now, the product of 5 and a number is less than 0. What could that number be? There is a lot of different vocabulary that you would hopefully recognize by this point. If you haven't, please watch that other video, right? But the one that we want to focus on is this less than. They spelled it out for us basically, so we know exactly what symbol we're working with, which is the less than symbol. Now we can translate the rest of them. Product, multiplication of 5 and a number. The number we don't know is the variable. We could use x, which is most common, or you could use whatever you want. So the product of 5 and a number, let's just put 5x right here, is less than 0, which is fairly self-explanatory. Now, what could that number be? Well, at this point, it's basically asking you to solve this inequality. Well, the only thing we can really do at this point is just divide by 5 on both sides, right? And we have x is less than 0. So any number that is less than 0, basically any negative number, will make this statement true. All right, so let's look at the second one. Very similar format. However, it's not as obvious as the first example, right? 3 times a number plus 1 is at most 10. What could that number be? So in this case, if we're looking for the specific inequalities, hopefully you guys can see it right already. It is right here, at most, right? Now, once again, it's one of those, you'll see it a lot, but it's not as obvious. At most is actually the less than or equal. Once again, most is the largest amount, and anything less than that is perfectly fine at most, right? And of course, we're going to translate the problem itself. So 3 times a number. So 3 multiply, right, times a number, some variable. So let's just stick with the standard x because we all love x, right? So 3 times some number plus 1, all right? So I didn't leave enough room here. Let's just erase that and then let's try again. All right, so it's going to be 3 times some number plus 1 is at most 10. So 10 is the largest possible. There it is, right? What could that number be? Well, at this point, once again, if you want, you can figure out a number, but mainly solve it and you'll see what are the range of numbers that you can use. So this is like solving a standard equation. I also have a video on just how to solve inequalities, right? So watch that. Subtract 1, this goes away. You have 3x is less than or equal to 9. Divide by 3 on both sides, right? Then now you have x is less than or equal to 3. And this would be your answer. Any number that is less than or equal to 3 would make this statement true. All right, so there we have it. This is, once again, just an addendum to translating word problems. Specifically, this one focuses on inequalities. Hopefully this will help you with your word problems a little more. We have our greater than, less than, greater than, or equal, less than or equal. If they spell it out for you, if they say it or write those specific words, that's great. If, for example, greater than, they have bigger than, larger than, so on and so forth. Hopefully it's fairly simple. If we're talking about less than, they have smaller than, so on and so forth. Fairly simple. The ones that I really want you guys to get out of this, the main focus, is the at least and at most, right? Once again, at least is actually talking about greater than, even though it seems kind of weird that you have the least, which is usually corroborated with like a small, right? We're talking about greater than, and at most is talking about less than, right? Because once again, at most is talking about that is the biggest possible. You don't want to pass that. So hopefully this clarifies it a bit. If it haven't, then, well, I don't know. Watch it again. Anyways, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.